Chapter 1, Pretending to be Alive. When Li Xian was folding the quilt, he realized that there was another person under his quilt. The person's facial features are his, the pajamas he is wearing are his, and even the watch on his wrist is his. After being stunned for a few seconds, Li Xian understood that it was him. I felt my breath. It was already cold. I touched my body. It was already hard. Am I dead? So, the I now is a ghost? Li Xian, who was extremely shocked, stood there blankly at a loss. The company just had a physical examination, and he didn't have any diseases. He didn't have any fatal bad habits. He didn't have any enemies. He had no recent physical injuries. He was so good. Why did he die suddenly? The only abnormality is that in the past month or so, he has often dreamed of a girl in red. The girl's skin was as good as snow, her figure was exquisite, and she had a pair of charming, slender eyes. She keeps trying to get close to him, but it's just a dream. Can people die in dreams? Li Xian was in panic and couldn't figure out anything. Call the police? Tell the police that you are dead? This is probably the coldest joke of the century. Look at the watch. It's already 10 past 8. If you haven't gotten on the subway by 8:30, you'll be late today. He casually pulled up the quilt, completely covering the body, and then hurried to work. When you don't know what to do, taking things step by step may be the best option. The subway was still crowded, but Li Xian among the crowd no longer felt crowded. The people around him were like the winter sun warm. The closer he got to them, the more refreshed he felt, and every pore felt comfortable. It's so cold. The girl closest to him shivered. Brother, it's not okay for you to suck Yongqi like this. It will be easily noticed by others. A young man with red hair came up to him and said with a playful smile. Li Xian frowned and ignored it. Li Xian doesn't understand what it means to inhale Yongqi, and he doesn't have a good impression of such familiar people. You have to be like me. Soaked in rain and dew dash, the red-haired man didn't mind Li Xian's attitude. As if to show off, he even somersaulted on the subway. Wherever he passed, faintly visible lights flowed out from the passengers' bodies and merged into his body. Don't hit anyone, Li Xian warned him. Haha, how stupid, the redhead laughed. No wonder, he is still a half-ghost. Only then did Li Xian realize that in the carriage full of passengers, no one could see the red-haired young man, and no one could hear him. However, his abrupt warning attracted several doubtful glances. The red-haired man was quite interested in Li Xian, and was about to come over to continue chatting with him, when he suddenly froze for a moment, as if he had been warned. Bye! The red-haired man smiled hard, waved to Li Xian, and walked directly through the closed door of the subway and walked out. It turns out the redhead is a ghost too. But why can others see and hear myself speak? Li Xian touched the window glass and car body behind him. For him, this could still block his real existence. Is it because he is half-ghost? What happened to the half-ghost? Li Xian works in an escape room club, which is located on the top floor of Qianshan City Commercial Building. It covers an area of several thousand square meters and has dozens of themed escape rooms. The secret room Li Xian is in charge of is haunted house survival. To put it bluntly, it means pretending to be a ghost in a haunted house to scare people. He likes this job very much. As ordinary as he is, it is only at this time that others will be shocked and shouting because of his existence. After the brief regular meeting, all colleagues took their places and performed their duties. Putting on the scary work clothes, Li Xian walked along the long corridor and came to his own place, the haunted house. His job is very simple. He only needs the cat to be in a certain corner. When customers come in, he will follow them, pat them on the shoulder inadvertently, or suddenly run in front of them, or grab their ankles. In the haunted house where you can't see your fingers, you can see nothing except those horror props painted with fluorescent light. Li Xian checked the sound and light as usual. After confirming that everything was normal, he turned off the lights in the haunted house. The moment the lights went out, a pair of soft hands suddenly covered his eyes. "I'm a new female ghost. Would you like to be a ghost couple with me?" A deliberately hoarse voice came from behind her ears. Li Xian Shmilato Bleshli. Needless to say, it was Yu Xiaoling who was causing trouble again. This girl just graduated from college this year and works as the front desk of a club. She looks like a pretty soft girl, but deep down she likes all kinds of exciting games, especially watching horror movies alone in the dead of night. She was not interested in the brain-burning themes in the club. She was obsessed with haunted houses, but when she had free time, she would often sneak over to scare Li Xian. Before Li Xian could say, "Stop it," Yu Xiaoling suddenly screamed and removed her hands from his eyes, stumbled to the power switch, and turned on the light. Looking at Yu Xiaoling, who was breathing heavily and looking pale, Li Xian asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" "Scared. Scared me to death, Dash." Yu Xiaoling looked at Li Xian suspiciously. "I thought I was covering a ghost just now." "Maybe I really am a ghost," Li Xian said sarcastically. He has not yet adapted to his new identity, or cannot accept it. He just pretended that he was still alive, pretending that life was the same as before. "Stop talking nonsense. It's very evil." Yu Xiaoling timidly glanced around the haunted house. "Okay, I'm going to get busy." Yu Xiaoling left the haunted house, as if running away. "Ha, you made me laugh so hard. You claim you're not afraid of ghosts, but you wilt when you encounter real ghosts. This is called Mr. Yi being a ghost." The originally silent haunted house suddenly burst into unbridled chatter and laughter. Li Xian followed the sound and looked over. Unexpectedly, there were 6 or 7 more people in the room. Some were lying in the coffins of the haunted house. Some were riding on the paper-covered white horses, or they were sitting on the shoulders of the hanging ghost dolls, swinging back and forth. "When did you guys come in?" Even though he was calm, Li Xian couldn't help but feel a little frightened at this moment. "We have been here for several years, longer than you have been working. Hey, how can you see us today?" He is half ghost now. Of course he can see us and hear us. "Hey boy, when you went to work yesterday, I felt that you were mentally disturbed and in a trance. I didn't expect that you would actually die today." It turns out these are all ghosts too. Li Xian, get ready. The first group of guests are about to arrive. A notice from the main station sounded on the intercom. "Copy that." Li Xian agreed, and quickly turned off the light. The strange thing was that even with the lights off, he could still clearly see everything in the haunted house, including the ghosts. After hearing the announcement on the intercom, the ghosts swarmed to the door early, waiting greedily and excitedly, like a group of eager diners. "You are not allowed to harm tourists. Li Xian Barnett. Don't worry, we won't kill you to retrieve eggs. We're just inhaling some young energy. If someone is killed, your club will not be able to continue, and we will lose a place to hang out." All the ghosts agreed. Li Xian sat in the corner with a cold eye. Although they were both ghosts, they were few and powerful, and they couldn't fly around like them. He knew that he couldn't interfere, so he simply stood aside and watched. His attitude towards life has always been negative. The first group to come in were 6 college students, 3 boys and 3 girls. The 3 boys were careless and looked for every opportunity to take advantage of the female companions around them. They were obviously not lovers. Chapter 2: Haunted House Escape. Based on his experience playing Ghost in the past few years, Li Xian knows that men like to bring the opposite sex they like to haunted houses. In a scary and terrifying atmosphere, these opposite sexes will tighten their hands or get into their arms out of fear, making it easy to capture their hearts. "Oh my god, Dash," a girl screamed as soon as she entered the door. "You haven't passed the scary level yet? Why are you afraid of it first?" Her male companion said with a smile. I feel a chill on the back of my head, Dash," the girl said with palpitations. "This is a psychological effect," the male companion said decisively, his right hand unconsciously wrapped around the girl's waist. In the past, Li Xian would have thought it was a psychological effect, but now he knew it was not. A tall and thin ghost was putting his mouth to the back of the girl's head and blowing air continuously. Once a ghost gets close to a person, a faintly visible light will emit from the person and go straight into the ghost's body. When a person screams out of fear, more light will be emitted from the body, and the ghost will absorb more. That light must be what they call Yam Qi. The ghosts quickly divided the work. Basically, one person was followed by a ghost, and the strongest boy among them was followed by 2 ghosts. The stronger a person is, the more light he emits. This was completely different from Li Xian's previous understanding. In the ghost stories he had read, ghosts seemed to be afraid of strong men and favored weak ones. In order to absorb more yang energy, the ghosts tried their best to scare the tourists. The strong boy was being teased by 2 ghosts at the same time. Every time he screamed, more light than others would emanate from his body. There are many levels in the haunted house. To pass the levels, you need to find the corresponding keys. The place where the key is hidden is either among a bunch of holes or in a half-covered coffin. Let me do it. When preparing to pass the 3rd level, a girl with short hair volunteered and reached into the coffin to get the key. Li Xian saw that a fat ghost quickly got into the prop coffin, grabbed the short-haired girl's hand, kissed and touched it, scaring the girl so much that she screamed and struggled desperately, and the light from her body quickly leaked out. It wasn't until she fell to the ground that the fat ghost let go. Unfortunately, neither she nor her companions could see all this. The strong boy was accompanying her. He quickly picked her up and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's all fake." Just now, it seemed like a ghost was holding my hand," the short-haired girl sobbed. "It must be a ghost disguised by the staff. But his hands are so cold, Dash. It's not easy to cool your hands. You can do it with special gloves." Under the comfort of the strong boy, the girl with short hair calmed down a little, but she still held his waist tightly with her hands and refused to let go. The strong boy looked proud, and his hands unconsciously slid to the girl's perky buttocks. The 2 ghosts following the strong boy sneered and suddenly appeared in front of him, with 4 red eyes staring at him and grinning ferociously, because they only appeared briefly. No one else saw them except the strong boy and Li Xian. The strong boy was so frightened that he squatted on the ground and screamed. The 2 ghosts happily absorbed the torrent of light emanating from him. "Qiangzi, what's wrong?" all the students asked the boy. "What a fool." After a full minute, the strong boy calmed down and laughed at himself. Although I knew it was a photoelectric effect, I was still scared out of my wits. The effect of this club is really awesome. After seeing off the first group of guests, the receptionist commended over the intercom. "Li Xian, this wave of guests are very satisfied, and they even said that they would bring friends to play in the future. The boss hopes that you will keep up this momentum, and will give you a bonus at the end of the month." Looking at the few ghosts staggering around with contented faces, Li Xian smiled bitterly. This result had nothing to do with him. From beginning to end, he was just following them to watch the show. A total of 3 groups of guests were received in the morning, and the situations were similar. In the end, Li Xian was too lazy to follow them, and was alone in the corner of the haunted house in a daze. At noon, the boss specially added a dish to the lunchbox distributed by the boss to commend him for his outstanding work today. This is actually a moderate blow to Li Xian. The hard work of pretending to be a ghost in the past few years seems to be redundant. Although he was not hungry at all, Li Xian still picked up the food and prepared to eat. "Hey, boy, do you really want to eat that meal?" the fat ghost said with a half smile. "What's wrong?" Li Xian was already somewhat accustomed to their presence. "Although you are born with a lot of young energy, you can't sustain it for a few days," another old-fashioned ghost reminded. "Eating this food into your ghost's belly will not only be of no use, but also waste a lot of yang energy to digest it." Hearing what he said, Li Xian couldn't help but ask, "Can you tell me what half-ghost means? What's the matter with yang qi?" "Becoming a real ghost depends on chance," that ghostie said. "Besides, Xiaoqian warned us not to help you." "Who is Xiaoqian?" Li Xian was stunned for a moment. The old ghost glared at the fat ghost. The fat ghost knew he had made a mistake and waved his hands repeatedly. "I don't know anything." "Error 500, server error." 1500, that's an error. There was an error. "Please try again later." "That's all we know." He looked at the ghosts, but didn't ask any more questions. He knew they wouldn't tell him. The atmosphere in the haunted house was a little awkward for a while. One ghost said, "Brothers, there are a group of guests in the secret room next door. They are just idle. Go and absorb some more yang energy." "Error 500, server error." 1500, that's an error. There was an error. "Please try again later." That's all we know. Li Xian works the day shift, and his daily working hours are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. At around 5 o'clock, he welcomed the last group of guests, 3 men and 1 woman. The 3 men were in a group, and the girl was alone. The girl is in her early 20s. She has a beautiful appearance, a tall figure, an oval face, and a pair of big, bright eyes that are particularly charming. It's just that her expression was a little melancholy, and her face was a little pale, as if she had just been sick. "Beauty, don't worry. If you're scared, I will protect you," one of the men said to the girl at the door of the haunted house. The man's chest muscles were already very developed, and he deliberately held his chest out when he walked, as proud as a cock in a public penis. The girl ignored him and just turned her body to the side, further away from the muscular man. The ghosts were already waiting for them at the door. Li Xian thought that they must like the muscular man the most because he has the most yang energy. However, unexpectedly, as soon as the 4 tourists entered the haunted house, the ghosts all pounced on the girl like hungry wolves, greedily absorbing the light flowing from her body. Dash, the originally calm girl couldn't help but scream. Her body trembled several times as the light quickly flowed out. The girl's voice made the 3 men excited. They all gathered around the girl, as if they had planned it. One guy put his arm around her shoulders, another pulled her hand, and the muscular man groped and stretched his hand towards her tall breasts. Chapter 3, New Demon Element. "Go away," the girl yelled. Latest chapter reading. Frightened and angry, more light poured out from her body, and the ghosts became more and more excited. Seeing this scene, Li Xian could no longer remain calm. He strode forward, opened the muscular man's wretched hand with a slap, and pushed the other 2 men away from the girl. There is a ghost. Damn, the ghost is out. What the hell? It must be a staff member. Although the muscular man said this, his voice was already trembling. "Hey, You pretender, I tell you. I have practice Sonda. If you try to scare me again, be careful, I will kick you to death dash. The three big men shouted and waved their fists desperately, fearing that something terrible would attack them again. Affected by the screams of the three men, the girl became more and more frightened, and the light on her body surged out like a river bursting its banks. The ghosts were pushing each other, fighting for the light. If this continues, the girl's body will collapse and she may even die. A few years ago, ghost towns were popular across the country, and people were scared to death in them. Now that I think about it, it may not have been because they were scared to death. It was probably because their yang energy was sucked out by the ghosts and they died. Li Xian rushed over, grabbed one with each hand, and threw all the ghosts surrounding the girl far away. The light in the girl's body suddenly stopped flowing. You new devil! You don't want to hang out in a circle, do you? The ghosts flew back and surrounded Li Xian. Li Xian stared at them, raised his fists, and prepared for a fight. He never spoke because he knew that his voice would be heard by the tourists. The tall and thin ghost suddenly got angry, jumped up, and hit Li Xian's heart. Li Xian flew up with a kick, like a ball, and kicked him away. He hit the wall, passed through the wall, and fell to the outside of the haunted house. He is half ghost, and he still has a lot of natal yang energy in him. We can't deal with him now. In a few days, when his natal yang energy is exhausted, we will slowly torture him again, Igwe said. As a result, the ghosts gave up their plan to duel with Li Xian, and together with the tall and thin ghost who came back through the wall, they followed the girl not far, or near like a flock of crows surrounding the execution ground, with uncontrollable greed in their eyes. Worried that the ghosts would harass the girl again, Li Xian simply followed the girl. When he and the girl were close at hand, he suddenly felt a vaguely seductive scent that could be smelled, immersed into his body, and filled his limbs and bones like an electric current, making him feel warm and comfortable. Taking a closer look, the girl's body began to shed the faint light again, and it was integrating into her own body. Li Xian stepped back continuously, and the light stopped flowing until he was more than 1 meter away from her. This new kid is a fool. He doesn't even want to inhale the best yang energy that is rare in a century. Damn, he won't let us inhale even if he doesn't. I'm so angry. All the ghosts yelled and cursed. Li Xian turned a deaf ear and escorted the girl through all the levels and left the haunted house. When the ghosts saw that Li Xian was no longer following the girl, they chased her out wildly. Knowing that he couldn't be the girl's bodyguard for the rest of his life, Li Xian couldn't bear it, but he didn't go out to interfere again. The ghosts did not succeed, and no one knew what kind of blow they had received. Within a few minutes, they all came back dejectedly. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, colleagues came to pick up Li Xian from work on time. Li Xian went to the locker room to change clothes and left the club. Downstairs of the commercial building, Li Xian met the girl again. She was waiting for the bus at the stop sign. The three men who had entered the haunted house were following her not too far away, looking at her with malicious intent. Li Xian walked over, stood more than 1 meter away from the girl, and reminded softly, "Be careful of the 3 people behind you." "Thank you, I know." The girl turned her head, glared at the 3 men with disgust, and then said, "I have already called my dad. He will pick me up at the bus stop in front of our community." Li Xian nodded and stopped talking, pretending that he was also waiting for the bus. If those 3 guys dared to bully girls here, he would certainly not stand idly by. The bus arrived soon. The girl got on the bus, and the 3 men immediately followed her. Li Xian was hesitating whether to follow the car to protect the girl. A graceful old man with white hair suddenly walked up to him, patted his shoulder, and said, "Thank you, young man. Don't worry, I'm here." The bus door had been closed, and the old man was not in a hurry. He walked straight through the door and stood between the three men and girls. No one in the crowded carriage saw him. It turns out he is a ghost too. The bus started to move, and the old man smiled kindly at Li Xian through the window. In the evening, the city is bustling with lights and lights. Li Xian discovered that there were more than a dozen ghosts active in the only 500 to 600 meters from the commercial building to the subway entrance. "Hi, new ghost." A skateboarding ghost said hello to Li Xian and then skated past him gracefully. Passers-by not only couldn't see the ghost, they couldn't even see the skateboard under the ghost's feet. Does skateboarding also have a soul? No. That's obviously a real skateboard, but it's been specially treated. Li Xian was thinking while walking, "Hey, are you still a half-ghost?" A ghost dressed as a hawker came up to Li Xian and said furtively in a low voice, "Half-ghosts can't absorb too much yang energy. When your natural yang energy is used up, you will be wiped out." Li Xian ignored him and went his own way. When the smoke disappears, the smoke disappears. Anyway, it is quite strange to exist in this world in this form. "I can help you become a real ghost." The vendor said, "As long as you promise to give me 100 taels of yang energy every year after you become a real ghost." "How much yang qi do you need every day?" Li Xian couldn't help but ask. "I run business every day, so I need more yang energy, at least 1 yuan." The vendor ghost replied casually, "It seems that the measurement unit of ghosts is similar to the common silver in the old days, and they are all traded in liang and money. 10 coins equals 1 tael, and 100 taels of yang energy is enough to keep a ghost alive for 3 years. The ghosts in the haunted house wake up early and work hard every day to inhale the yang energy, but they can barely make ends meet. 100 taels is obviously a large amount." Li Xian shook his head, even more determined to become a real ghost. When he was a human being, he was already overwhelmed by mortgage payments, credit cards, etc. Before he became a ghost, he was burdened with such a heavy burden, and his life was dull. Yes, I admit, the price is indeed a bit high, but think about it. Compared to losing your soul, this little yang energy is nothing. Seeing that Li Xian was unmoved, the vendor made a show of jumping off the building to sell. "Can 80 taels do it? 70 taels, no less. I need to put in several magic talismans." "What is the magic talisman? Can you introduce me to the half-ghost thing first?" Since he stayed close to him, Li Xian wanted to take the opportunity to resolve the confusion in his heart. Magic talisman. This is so important. The hawker spat and spat, as if he wanted to teach Li Xian a lesson. Before he started speaking, he seemed to see something strange behind Li Xian and suddenly waved his hands. "Forget it, I won't do your business." After saying that, he turned around and ran away. Li Xian hurriedly turned around and looked behind him, only to feel his eyes blurred as a red shadow quickly flew into the crowd and disappeared. Chapter 4: Ethereal Body. 2 days later, Li Xian found that his body was getting slower and slower, and he was becoming more and more afraid of the cold. No pop-up novel website. It seemed that those ghosts were right. Their own yang qi was about to be exhausted, and soon, even this soul body would be wiped out. Li Xian called the club and asked for a week's leave. This was just a habit. In fact, he understood that he would never have the chance to work again. On the morning of the 3rd day, Li Xian finished taking a shower, wrapped only a bath towel around his waist, and lazily leaned on the sofa and looked at his phone. Suddenly, I heard someone picking the lock outside the door. Then the security door was opened and a thief crept in. "Hey, brother, I'm in. Don't worry, I've already done a good job. The person who lives here is single, works all day during the day, and can't even see a ghost." The thief was a little arrogant, looking at the situation in the house while talking on the phone. Li Xian was a little surprised. He was sitting carelessly on the sofa in the living room. Why couldn't he see him? The thief's eyes finally turned to Li Xian, but he did not look at Li Xian's face. Instead, he stared at the mobile phone in Li Xian's hand in surprise and said with disbelief, "Brother, you may not believe it when I tell you. There is a magical mobile phone in this room that is actually floating in the air dash." The thief said, reaching out to grab Li Xian's cell phone. "What are you going to do?" Li Xian shouted and stood up. "Brother, something is wrong. I saw a floating bath towel again. Could there be a ghost?" The thief's voice was trembling. The light on his body was flowing towards Li Xian continuously. "This room is too evil, brother. I feel chills all over." "Oh my god, Dash," the thief screamed and ran out the door. He even fell when he ran to the door. The cell phone he was talking on fell to the ground, and he didn't care to pick it up. He opened the door and jumped out. Hey, second brother, since you're in, why don't you steal some things and talk?" "Damn, you are so brave. How can there be ghosts in this world, Dash?" A man's voice came from the receiver of the mobile phone.